Arata is a handsome but useless wimp who couldn't get play because he feared women more than Muzan fears the sun. However, after learning that he was actually adopted, he decides to turn his family into an Alabama special by starting a harem with his sisters. With Arata asking Cheyenne for Rizz tips so he can finally get some action. After Cheyenne says he just has to go with the flow to get a girlfriend like his, Arata loses it and says he doesn't know what the flow means. Cheyenne then asks why he is even bothered by girls when he can technically have anyone he wants as their family's heir. As Arata tries to mask low testosterone level with a stupid speech about true romance, their sisters all come out and take turns guessing that Arata was definitely looking for advice to deal with the fact that it's the same size as their pinky. When he tells them to mind their own business, Oka continues with the insults, so Shin decides to add a little spice by saying that Arata was talking about the size of their milk bags. After sending her dog to bite chunks of skin off his body, she tells him to get help because regular brothers don't obsess over their sister's plot. Arata then claims that he has only ever seen them as ugly meat sacks, but then Oka asks if that was the case during his incident with Kotono. When Banri finally steps in as the oldest to defend him, Nanami also admits that he isn't all bad, so he tries to give her a hug but receives a punch that almost paralyzes him. Just then, Oka reminds them that it's Kotono's birthday on Saturday, and they all agree to go out together after the birthday dinner before heading to the train station for school. Later on, Shan meets up with Arata in the men's room to talk about how everyone in school acts like they have the dream family, when in reality they just get bullied by all 5 sisters and have almost no way of fighting back. Cheyenne also points out the fact that most people suspect that they actually clap in secret, and when Arata says nothing like that will ever happen, Cheyenne reminds him of Kotono's confession. Hours later, Arata considers sending a friend request to his crush, but chickens out right before Oka comes in to ask for his notes. As she reads through them, he notices that Jugs have changed a bit and says she should start acting her age, but then she calls him stupid for thinking she needs to be civilized up in the same house that they all grew up in. The next moment she asks about his crush and says Shan told her all about it, so he reluctantly tells her the girl's name. After saying that they are actually on the same committee, she tries to set them up, but he tells her to focus on finding someone that can put up with her irritating personality instead. On Kotono's birthday several days later, he puts on a suit and waits until dinner time before heading out and seeing Oka, who then manages to squeeze out a compliment before heading down. At the dinner table moments later, Minami tries to apologize for losing her AirPod, but she gets pissed and continues cussing until they both start arguing. After Arata tells them to stop, their dad, Kaname, finally shows up and thanks them all for waiting. Just as they make a toast to Kotono, Kaname decides to drop a bomb and says they are all actually adopted. Arata immediately asks for an explanation, so he further explains that while Minami and Cheyenne are actually twins, the rest of them are all unrelated. After also saying that he promised their mother to keep it a secret until the right time, he continues the dinner like nothing happened, but they all drift away from reality. Shortly after that, a maid tries to serve them tea, but Banri tells her not to worry and proceeds to serve it herself before Oka starts talking about how she feels betrayed. After Sia and Minami tell her to stop overthinking it, they ask Banri if she knew about it since she has been around longer. She then claims to have forgotten most of their childhood years and says the fact that they are all basically orphans who hit the jackpot should not change anything about their relationship. With that said, they all head inside to rest, but after a couple minutes of overthinking, Arata decides to cool off with a bath. Upon seeing all the plot covers in the laundry basket, he starts to accept that nothing has really changed until he locks eyes with Kotono in the bath. He immediately apologizes and turns to leave, but she asks for help with her back, so he ends up scrubbing while Shin meets up with Oka to talk. As she starts to wonder how the sudden revelation will affect the fact that she has always treated Arata like her twin brother, Cheyenne claims that the only thing they really have to worry about is how society will react when it becomes public news. Meanwhile, Kotono has just stopped Arata from going out, leaving him frozen in shock as he fears that she wants him as her birthday present.
Yeah, boy.
While he tries to get his sword under control, Cheyenne tells Oka that they can actually start a family harem because the law doesn't stop unrelated siblings from getting married.
No, he's got a point.
Naturally, she gets disgusted by the idea and asks if he has just been waiting for the perfect opportunity to unleash his creepy nature. After he immediately puts his guard back up and claims to only have positive thoughts of her as a sister, Oka foolishly believes him and starts talking about the night Arata told her to cover up her melons, while chills run down her spine. When Shin tells her to cut him some slack, she asks if he knows what actually happened between him and Kotono, but he refuses to say anything because Arata made him swear to keep the truth to himself. Oka then says that they all know he would never actually do anything to her, and further explains that they have just been using it to tease him. After giving it some thought, he tells her that Kotono suddenly decided to confess her feelings to him that night and refused to take no for an answer when he turned her down. As he tried to pull her away, they all entered the game room and thought he was the one making a move on her, so he decided to tell only Cheyenne so the girls wouldn't trouble Kotono. Upon hearing this, Uka tells him that they need to do something about Kotono, but Cheyenne reminds her that she is still young and might just be confusing respect for love. When Uka tells him to stop acting like he is some kind of wise mage, he agrees that Kotono's feelings might reach new heights, especially with the truth of their family finally being revealed. Back in the bath, Arata has just asked Kotono if some of the steam entered her head, but she responds by confessing her love again and refusing to let go of him. When he tells her to stop thinking anything can ever happen between them, she replies that she has already read about the implications of loving a brother, but still refuses to give up, so he pulls her away and explains that she is just confused. He then promises to continue looking out for her until the day her brain grows past phase 1 and fixes whatever went wrong with her ability to understand her own emotions. He also decides to keep what just happened to himself and turns to leave, so she walks back into the bath and says she has never met anyone capable of being so heartless and caring at the same time. Meanwhile, Kanan tries to convince himself that wrecking the entire family was worth it by focusing on the promise he made to his wife, but Banri interrupts his meditation to talk about it. By then, Arata has just gotten back to his room and finds Siha on his bed, so she asks if she got lost. When she asks where he is coming from, he quickly lies about needing to take a walk.
Cap.
But she refuses to believe him and walks around for a bit before talking about how they all played rock, paper, scissors to pick rooms and gave him the smallest one while Oka got the largest. As she continues talking about random stuff they have all experienced as a family, he tries to figure out how that is connected to her sudden decision to play detective in his room. The next moment, she pushes him back onto the bed and leans in to monitor his heart rate while he starts to wonder why God is constantly testing him.
What more do you want from me?
After finally pulling away from his chest, she says he isn't the creep she once thought he was, so he asks why she is trying to turn him into one. As soon as she says she was in the bath when Kotono ambushed him, he throws her off before she commends him on acting civilized despite the temptation he had to deal with. She further says that although Kotono might just be confusing normal sibling love for something else, their dad's sudden confession might have pushed her over the edge of sanity. Arata still tries to figure out why all that caused her to spontaneously straddle his glizzy, so she explains that it was the only way to make sure he doesn't actually see them as potential lovers, even if they aren't real siblings.
What?
When he asks why she couldn't use a less creepy approach, she claims that method was the easiest because she doesn't have any feelings for him. She goes on to remind him that not being siblings means they might start ending up in freaky situations, but also tells him not to worry about her because she still sees him as an extremely ugly caveman. After reminding him that she is still his older sister and demanding for a little more respect, she leaves but takes a moment outside to make sure her little experiment didn't actually cause her to get any weird feelings. Just as she manages to make herself believe that being so close to him meant nothing, Minani shows up and asks why she is outside his room but says it's nothing and immediately walks away. The next day, Arata wakes up with the stress of their new reality still weighing on his shoulders before getting ready for school. The moment he leaves the room, he sees Banri in a lab uniform with Kotono and asks if she has finally lost it. So she explains that she is just trying it on before asking if he likes how it brings out the shape of her plot. When he calls her stupid for asking such a question so early in the morning, she tells Kotono not to feel bad about the fact that he hates them. So he tries to apologize but gets even more confused when she tries to strip Kotono right in front of him. On the way out, Cheyenne then tells him that she was probably trying to lighten the mood so they can go back to the way things were. Moments later, two random guys see the girls walking to school together and starts gossiping about their perfect drumsticks. As they go on to say that they have the most perfect family, Arata and Cheyenne try to figure out how they will respond when the truth comes out. Just then, they realize that the girls are actually professional liars because they are all acting like it's another average day. While Shen and the girls go on about their day in school like absolutely nothing happened, Arata spends the entire day brooding until the last period. Upon getting to his locker to pack up, he continues reminding himself that the girls are still his sisters to make sure he doesn't start thinking of them in a freaky way.
What do you mean by that?
Just then, Minami shows up, so he asks if she skipped practice, but she claims to have the day off for once. As they walk together, he commends her on managing to stay consistent with her training despite all the pressure she is under as the school's hottest tennis protege. Just as she also tries to give him a compliment, three girls run up to get pictures with her and start glazing harder than unemployed Taylor Swift fans. When they finally leave, he asks why girls are also thirsting over her, so she tells him about a photo she took with a guy's uniform, which apparently made all the girls think she also likes to clap kitties. After wondering why he has never experienced such luck, he suggests going out and enjoying her day off, but then she explains that it was her coach who gave her the day off because she failed the placement test. This causes him to remember that she has always been the dumbest in the family, so he offers to help her study before taking her to a restaurant. While explaining the basics, he takes a close look at her face and sees why almost everyone wants a piece of her cake. She then asks for a detailed explanation of the difficult part, but as he breaks it down in ways her overactive mind can understand, she gets distracted. When he finishes, she acts like every word he said got carved into her brain, so he gives her a quick test, and she proceeds to fail every single problem. As he starts to accept that she is a lost cause, she grabs the microphone to sing, and he ends up getting won over by her free spirit. Several minutes later, they head out, but while trying to say that she needs another study session, he sees his crush hanging out with someone else and hides. On the way home moments later, she admits that singing with him was actually fun, but he quickly reminds her that they were meant to be working on her rapidly diminishing IQ points. When she says their dinner with Kanem was insane, he asks for her thoughts on the current situation, and she suggests talking with him again to figure out who their real parents actually are. As she expresses a deep concern for Kotono, seeing as she is the youngest and most sensitive, Arata starts to think that she isn't completely useless, but reminds her to keep the whole thing secret so they don't attract unnecessary attention. She goes on to say that not being actual siblings doesn't change anything about the relationship they have all built as a family, and this causes his belief in her to increase until she suddenly tells him not to worry about the fact that his crush is already getting another dude the Slurp special. He immediately asks how she knows about it, so she tells him how Oka blabbed about his pathetic love life and suggests focusing on being a good older brother instead of trying to lose his V card. After patting his head and telling him to cheer up, she asks if they can play a game at home, but he refuses and says she should focus on fixing whatever is wrong with her head. At the house shortly after that, she gives Oka a box of cakes and hands over her AirPods before saying that she found it in her club room. After she apologizes for losing it, Oka gives it back to her as a hand-me-down and makes her promise not to be so careless before asking for help with the cakes because she can't eat it all on her own. Comment Alabama love story for the next part, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this.